The following program is a fan-made review and reaction show. It is in no way affiliated with the movie trivia Schmoedown or Skybound Entertainment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ultimate Schmoedown Show. My name is John Barr. I will be your host for this episode, the captain of the ship. Feeling very much like Captain Crunch because it's early morning, and let me tell you, we're talking about the pay-per-view, two big matches that we had last night, and my choices definitely got crunchitized. So that's the energy I'm bringing into this. Joining me, as always, first up on my left, Colin. How you feeling, buddy? How's your, early afternoon going?
Yeah, it's about to be high noon over here, so everybody watch out. It's, we're a little tired, but we have the drug of choice of caffeine, and once it starts pumping, we don't start stopping. So I'm quite ready to get this show on the road.
Absolutely. And then Bogz, I'm just quite simply not good enough at math to know what time it is where you're at right now.
5 o'clock.
But how are you feeling, especially after having a long night watching two very big matches?
I feel okay now. Yeah, because, it's worth it. This is why I stay up till 4, 5 in the morning, because when we get this kind of drama, these kind of matches, man, I absolutely loved it. I'm sure I'll be tired in about 6 hours or so, but right now, it was worth it. Worth every single minute I stayed up. That was electric. For me, that was one of the best matches of all time. I saw twists and turns and drama, and yeah, when the belts are on the line, stuff goes down. When the best teams are playing, stuff happens, and it was magic.
Absolutely. When you get players of this caliber going at it, all of us are Koi John Brew. Just hopped up on every energy drink you can think of. And that's a great way to start talking about the first match, which involved Koi's team, his Golden Geese, as they were Shazam, Brendan Meyer and William the Beast Bibiani, going up against Who's the Boss from the Finstock Exchange. Both Ben and Mark making their return to the game after not having played in a hot second. There was a lot of hype going into this match. Certainly all three of us were very excited for it. Colin, just obviously we had a lovely little pre-show before the actual pay-per-view event, which if you folks haven't watched, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Go watch that, you goofs. But yeah, Colin, just real quick, go back over what your thoughts were heading into this match.
Man, I thought Who's the Boss had this in the bag. I thought this was going to... Okay, here's the problem here, all right? I say things on this show, and then I make picks that are in direct contrast to what I say on this show, and I got to stop. Because my whole point of momentum is real, and it proved again tonight that being in shape in this digital space is more important than your knowledge. Because I think it rattled Who's the Boss for the first time in either of their careers were truly like on the back. Like, they truly felt like they were like on their heels the entire match. And that to me was not a tone I was expecting. And it really, really took me for a surprise.
Yeah, man. It's interesting, again, you had to look at how even the best players might have that stumbling block when it comes to the digital age. Because even though it's technically the same game, it's just any sort of element of difference to it can really shake things up. Bogz, what about you? Let's kind of get into the match a little bit because, yes, certainly we had 4 folks that really made it difficult to try and call this because it's two very good teams. But there's also drama aplenty between these players as well that kind of added another element of excitement and kind of like, oh, which team really wants it more? Which team is going to be able to deliver more? Because they were barbs flying left and right.
Yeah, so it's all different styles, different personalities, all clashing. Obviously, the kind of the smart kind of digs that Bateman does kind of works in certain instances. You know, for example, probably didn't work initially when he was with the action guys. Then kind of the more serious they took it, then it did start to work. Then him as a singles player, initially it didn't work. But then again, the more seriously he took that his title kind of run, it did work. Obviously, he's gone for that same approach in this, which I did like. You know, I do like the theatrics of it and the kind of the just trying to rattle people. I do like that. I'm not going to lie. And obviously, yeah, we've seen you know, kind of throughout the match, you know, Bibiani kind of get quite upset and offended with it, which you know is the purpose of it. But obviously, it didn't work out in Bateman's favor and Who's the Boss's favor, because you know it's backfired on him big time. But that's the risk that you take. These are the slight differences between winning and losing, between greatness and getting knocked out and embarrassed, because you know these are the choices that we make. Obviously, it's not paid off for Bateman this time, but in many times in the past it has. So yeah, I just kind of love all the personalities and the different clashes and things like that. So yeah, so like you said, there were kind of barbs flying either side, but I loved it, and it was yeah, and it kind of fell into the match and made a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly Bateman is able to get under Bibiani's skin. We've been talking about that a little bit, but I would also say it seemed very clear to me that Brendan Meyer can really get under Ben Bateman's skin. And I think that's something Ben was not really counting on. I think there's that sort of element where Ben, not that he didn't come into this prepared, but more so that he just came into it in a more self-assured way, that he wasn't just, he might have been thinking about how good his opponents are at the movie trivia, but maybe he was coming in a little bit too pleased with himself as far as the character stuff goes, as far as being able to get at Bibiani, that when Brendan started to kind of throw jabs at him like, oh, you kind of just dissed Bibiani for missing a question, and then you just went and whiffed one yourself. I think Ben was not ready for that heat. He was not ready for it. And then, of course, Mark Riley, cool in the face of everything. God bless that man. But unfortunately...
Really? He wasn't too cool last night.
I mean, we can get into that.
The dude dropped an F-bomb. It was storming all around. Mark Riley was Mark rattled Riley last night. Let's not sugarcoat this, folks. We saw the worst performances from two of the greatest Schmoedown players of all time last night. And I'm here to, I'm not going to let this slide, because I went on the pregame show and I put it on Riley. Bateman brings the best out of Riley, and Bateman did not do that last night. Bateman has spent a lot of time doing a lot of stuff that has not helped Who's the Boss. He spent a lot of time talking smoke about the IG. He spent a lot of time saying how he can challenge for the belt, and he's been talking it up the last 3 months on Rundown. And the second Chandru actually brings some heat, Ben crumbles. And when Ben crumbles, Riley's out there all by himself. Riley has not competed at all. He's been getting other stuff going on. Hasn't really been focused on the Schmoedown. Ben literally lives the Schmoedown. He hosts a show every week about the Schmoedown and was not there for his partner last night. And Riley's, it was obvious. It was so obvious to me that Riley needed a different Ben Bateman. And the kid taking jabs like he did, it was perfect. It was the perfect way to dismantle that team, because Who's the Boss knows just as much as Shazam. That's not the argument. But Shazam played a better mind game than Who's the Boss did, because Riley came in with some 2017 Riley energy, and this is 2020, dude. This is 2020.
It's not even the mind games element. I think it's also just the strategy game. You know, you want to talk a little bit about Chandru. I think that's fair, because I also saw some not great gameplay by Who's the Boss, because they used all 3 of their JTE rules within the first round. And I mean, you know, obviously I've never played a Schmoedown match.
Finstock's got to step in at some point. Finstock's got to step in, and he's got to no, that you.
Well, we could definitely get into that, because I've got some thoughts on that one as well. But yeah, I mean, the gameplay itself from Who's the Boss, it wasn't quite there. I think it's one of those things where, again, just because they have been out for a while. They really wanted to have that stronger start. And it is that kind of thing where I get the idea of like, oh, if you feel like you have the answer just like right there somewhere and you just need that extra like couple seconds to pull it, I completely get using a JTE, don't get me wrong. But to use all three in the first round where ultimately everything is only worth 1 point, that just seems like a shaky move. Bogz, what were you thinking coming out of that first round?
Yeah, same kind of thing. I mean, I will put it on Russ though, purely on Russ. It's particularly Mark. I mean, I don't know how many points exactly he got in the first round, but I believe it was quite low, especially for that caliber, for these caliber of players, for a number one contender match. But like we said, he's not played in so long, same as Bateman. And that is, for me, that's literally the reason why they're using 3 repeats in the first round. After doing so, they still, I believe they did manage to get a point or two from using them repeats, as in pulling the answers, but they were still 3 points down at the end of round 1. So how worth it was it really? Do you know what I mean? So, because, obviously there's more points to get in round 2, maybe potentially save them repeats for round 2 or even round 3 where you might need them more to stay in the game. But yeah, like, I mean, there's no, like Colin's saying, there's no sugarcoating it. Like, who's the boss got whoops, good and proper. And yeah, I believe it was because of Rust, absolutely. But nevertheless, yeah, obviously a few tactical mistakes here, a few strategy mistakes, wrong mind games being played. And yeah, they got shown up for it.
Yeah, and we can definitely dig a little bit more into that. I know Colin's got some things to say specifically about Finstock, so we can start digging into that in
Colin's ready to go.
The second round, because that's the final round of this match. Like you guys said, there's no sugarcoating it. This was a knockout. And I think you're absolutely right, Bogz. A big part of it fell on the fact that Mark Riley just has not played in a second. It's obviously none of us are saying Mark Riley is a trash player. We're not going to tarnish the man's legacy like that. But I watched this match and I got the same energy as Mark Riley versus Andrew Guy, which was a couple years ago now, where Mark, there is no question that Mark very clearly cares very deeply about the game. No question of that. However, there's that just element, like we've been saying, with the ring rust of not being able to match the passion and the knowledge that's there with then the gameplay in practice. Colin, what are you thinking right now? Do you feel like I'm being fair? Do you feel like I'm being unfair?
Yeah. No. You're totally being fair. It's a combination of a lot of things, and I always say this. There's you gotta factor in what's the worst thing that could possibly happen in a match, and it's these things have to go wrong. What has to go wrong for that to happen? And we brought up the statistics for the Korruption versus Founding Fathers match in our pregame, but we didn't bring up the statistics for this match. I couldn't find any, but to really think that this was going to go the way it was, I would have called you a liar just based on like who's in the match, who like it. Look, Riley was rattled in the first round, and there was a chance, there was opportunity in the second round, but opponent's choice. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with opponent's choice, right? Like that just happens. And sometimes if we talk about again, what is the worst thing that could happen? Mark Riley has the worst first round of his entire career. He then follows it up with opponent's choice in a classics category that, like Bateman mentions, basically spans from 1959 to our favorite movie with the train running out, or the train flying through the screen. So it's that entire stretch of movie history, and it asks you anything. Like, and yeah, it's pretty wild if that's your first wheel slice back. I mean, Nora Ephron is even probably a preferred first slice back than classics. I mean, at least it's a little more, narrow of a subject. Riley just wasn't ready for the Schmoedown 2020. Right now, this is not a game for like Riley gets comfortable in the arena. In the studio, Riley he's always felt like a powerful, imposing force. And I just didn't get that vibe from Riley in the box. Now, I've gotten that vibe from other players. Chance, even Paul, the way Paul plays in this format, I don't know if it's the way they're shot, but, you know, the way the camera angle, they just seem a little more imposing. But Riley just seemed on edge all night and just wasn't what I was expecting. And then for Finstock, this is your moment, dude. Like, if you, this was the biggest week in the history of the Finstock Exchange, the short history, you know, within the year. But this first year of the Finstock Exchange, this was a defining moment for this faction. It's a defining night. And it was not written at all the way they saw coming. And, I mean, I think it just makes Finstock's decision on who's going to play in the teams tournament even easier. Because I saw more dysfunction. I saw less to like about who's the boss's performance than I did about the Founding Fathers' performance. Because the way Rocha plays, but we'll talk later on, is just so far and beyond. That's the Rocha that we kept hearing about in the study sessions. I just saw none of that because, to be frank, I heard none about Ben Bateman and Riley's studying tactics. I'm sure they could have been also working with Craig the Barbarian, but they weren't out here, like, at least as far as I'm concerned, maybe a little bit on rundown from Ben, but he usually keeps stuff pretty close to the vest on rundown. He doesn't like to get into the tactic stuff, and that's, you know, that's on him. You know, that's his right to keep his, you know, tactics close to the vest when you're hosting a show. But John, I think that really, I think this was a missed opportunity on Who's the Boss's part to be more prepared for the moment. I just think they were underprepared, and Shazam was the overachieving kid in 5th grade that's sitting at the front of the class with their hand raised, ready to answer every question that the teacher had to ask them.
You're absolutely right on the money with that Shazam energy, let me tell you. And I definitely feel what you're saying about Who's the Boss and Dagnino as well. I think we can get a little bit into the specifics of that choice that Dagnino is talking about, because there are a couple factors there that I got some thoughts on. But before we get too deep into that and kind of looking past this match, I do want to make sure that we just, you know, again, quickly kind of wrap up the gameplay element, because that's the thing that there's the least to talk about, let's say. Just with, you know, Who's the Boss scoring 5 out of a possible 12 points in their round 2 with classics. And then Shazam not only getting 7 out of a possible 12 points in their category comedies, not missing a question, but then also getting 4 points in steals with the knockout performance. I mean, it was a shutout, even with the hiccup of the Elvis challenge, which, I mean, I get that from a perspective of, you know, you want to talk about which Elvis. The Finstock Exchange literally has a dude with a pelt named Elvis. Like, I get that that's not, like, you know, Elvis Presley is not the first Elvis that comes to mind for the Who's the Boss guys. I think that's fair. But yeah, I mean, Bogz, what were you thinking in this second round? Because I forget if you had called Shazam or Who's the Boss, but I bet you were not calling a second round that looked like this.
Not at all. Not at all. I did call Shazam. Yeah. So purely on the, you know, on the rust element and momentum element. But yeah, obviously it came to fruition, but I didn't think this much and by this method. Obviously, yeah, spinning, you know, opponent's choice, and then hitting classics, which, I mean, to be fair, Colin, I mean, Mark did hit a few points in round 3. He was you know, Ben didn't hit, well, in terms of their communication anyway, it seemed like Mark was the one to pull the points in round 2. Maybe that's too late. But yeah, he did kind of, I felt like he did redeem himself a little bit in round 2, because Ben didn't have any idea on them answers. At least he got, you know, a few points there. But yeah, I mean, Shazam just swept up after that, basically. Like you said, getting 4 steals and then almost going perfect in their round. Yeah, they just got beat good and proper. It was a bit brutal to see, to be honest. I mean, you know, 2 former champions and stuff, and yeah, obviously moving on to obviously Finstock's decision later on. But yeah, like it was not a good watch. I mean, had been no repeats left. It was just all a mess. I mean, and the challenge, I mean, at the time I did think it was a good challenge, because in terms of a petty challenge, in terms of it getting reversed because he didn't give the full name. But you know, obviously he didn't get upheld, which rightly didn't, because obviously the multiple choice option just said Elvis, so that was fine. But I just thought, just as a desperate attempt, I did kind of like the sneaky element of it. But yeah, obviously it didn't pay off, and yeah, they just got whooped good and proper. I mean, this is just what happens when you come in cold. Obviously, I didn't think it'd be this bad. But yeah, I was kind of a little bit glad to see Riley get a few points in round 2, just to show that, you know, he hasn't completely kind of, it was a complete disaster on their part. But yeah, I mean, obviously I've got more to say, but I'll save that for our discussion with Finstock's choice.
Absolutely, yeah. The Elvis challenge is one of those things that I think I kind of file under. I understand the logic of it, but come on, man. Come on. Like, it's one of those things where it definitely, as far as the actual rules of the game, it makes sense. There's definitely an argument to make. But, you know, it also winds up being one of those challenges that falls into the category of, well, I wouldn't have made that much of a difference.
To slow momentum as well.
Slow momentum. It's a tactic we've been seeing a lot from a lot of different managers, where they're just like, all right, the second we're down, let's look for any out. Like, this has definitely got to be the season where the most challenges.
Take a fall on the pitch, Bogz. Take a fall on the pitch.
Take a knee, yeah. Take a knee. Roll over, you know. Say that you're hurt when you're not.
Ow.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. Buys you a minute. Yeah, it buys you
time.
Yeah, it's a tactical. I did like that, to be honest. I did like it. I wasn't a massive fan of the challenge itself, but I did like that. Okay, they've stole 4 points off us now. They're steamrolling their own round. Let's just try and slow them down, just to kind of throw them off. Obviously, it didn't work, but it was a good attempt.
Absolutely, yeah. And now, certainly, imagining the Shazam versus Korruption title match.
Spoilers!
That's going to be. Well, you know, if you've been watching both our pregame and then this show, and you only watched one of the 2 matches from the pay-per-view, I don't feel bad. I'll say it. I don't care. Get with the times.
It might just be your fans,
Dumbledore. John. Ooh, gotcha. No, I think obviously I don't want to spend too much time talking about who's the boss, because I do want to make sure we give Shazam their credit. They certainly played a heck of a game. I was worried about Brendan Meyer kind of going into this, because I was feeling like he was a little bit shaky in his debut performance, but he really came with it this time, and the Beast proving why he's such a
singles
staple.
Or team debut? Which one gave you more trouble? His singles or team debut?
I would say his teams when they went up against.
Because I'd say the singles like kind of helped me. It kind of reaffirmed me on Thursday that, because I know you and I both have him going fairly far in the tournament. And that but that initial team's performance, Bibbs was kind of really the star. But last night they both shined bright and gave me just oodles of confidence that if Andraco is his opponent, I mean, he just went up against who's the boss. That's 2 former singles champions. So why not throw Mark Andraco at me? Because now he's got the experience and the confidence. And that is so big for somebody of like his potential. That's huge when we talk about potential, because even in sports, one thing that is always usually what happens, the best player in American sports, like the rookies, they go to the worst teams. And then they put a really great player on a really bad team, and then they have to be bad. He's a great player with great potential, experiencing greatness, true greatness early on in his career, much like Chance Ellison, much like Paulo Yamasaw. And I'm seeing the kid, I mean, most improved player of the year in terms from last year to this year, in terms of the player that we're seeing, he's a complete player right now. I'm seeing a complete player that no category gives him trouble. I'm not seeing one right now that he seems too fearful of, as some competitors do feel fearful. But John, I'm all in on the kid right now.
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting to see Koi now in a situation where I feel like his energy really matches the energy of 2 players that he has that are also really good. Koi definitely also gets along very well with the Real Rejects guys, and we're going to see how that goes, because I'm assuming that will probably be the squad that he puts into that team's tournament now that Shazam is ineligible for the tournament. But speaking of the tournament, we've been kind of dancing around it a little bit. Dagnino, or Finstock, is put in a situation right now where he is trying to choose between who's the boss and the Founding Fathers for the team's tournament. I understand why he feels like it's a very difficult decision. And I think it boils down to as well the energy he brought into this match, which is the current Dagnino stable, the current era of Dagnino as a manager is built on Who's the Boss. That is kind of the thing that he was able to make another managerial name for himself with after the end of the Patriots. This is the team that, if I'm not mistaken, won him Manager of the Year in 2018 and 2019. So when he was going into this match, I don't think he was feeling the pressure at all, especially because it wasn't even a titles match. It was a contenders match. He's got a lot of faith in his players, and that's a good thing to have. But I think he and Ben, not as much with Mark, but I think Dagnino and Ben specifically came into this feeling pretty cushy, where they were at that point where they're like, if we're self-assured enough, it doesn't really matter who we're standing up against, which you can argue is fair because they've been circling the belts pretty much since their inception as a team, but they also haven't held the belts since as a team. And I think part of the reason why Dagnino is feeling like this is a difficult choice is because I think these are the players more so than Dan and John that he has really tied himself to personally. I think these are the players where he kind of attaches a little bit more of his self-worth as a manager to, as opposed to the Founding Fathers, who are also, on top of being two people that he does care about certainly, also two of the people that are in the conversation for greatest of all time.
He's more like
so
their
than I think
stepdad.
Who's the Boss.
He's more like a stepdad to the Founding Fathers, but Who's the Boss are his blood kids. Like he married a lady who already had 2 kids, and they were the Founding Fathers, and they'd already gone to college. They had already done life. And then Bobby comes in, has a new family, and that family's Who's the Boss. And now, this kid's kind of not doing as well as the older brothers are. The standard's a little high, right? The older brothers set the standard a little high, and now they feel like that's a bar they have to get to. It's hard. They got there through that tournament, and if you don't have that tournament aspect to like that momentum, right? That momentum that they were able to build in that first tournament, truly taking out Titans after Titan after Titan in that, leading all the way up. And it's, they eventually lose the belts to the Shire Wolves. Yes.
Yeah, they lose their shot at the belts to the Shire Wolves.
Right. Lose their shots to the belt to the Shire Wolves. And that, it gives you a sense, I don't want to say like false confidence, but when you say I only lost to the Shire Wolves, who else has beaten me? It does give you, like you were saying, some cushy, but I call it a little bit of arrogance because that's because that's kind of not that's Ben's persona when he's playing this game, but it is like that. It is. Not to say, but it is. And it usually is an act because he usually comes in prepared for every moment. That's been the Ben that we've seen, but it just hasn't. That guy isn't here right now. So APB for that Ben Bateman because we need him back.
Absolutely. And then to kind of wrap up the discussion of this match, because we got a bigger event that I want to make sure we have time to discuss. But obviously, you're right. Who's the Boss also have done a teams tournament before and won it. So I think there is that argument of, oh, this is a team that can build up that momentum. Obviously, the Founding Fathers have had the belts for a while. These are two of the top tier guys. I understand why Dagnino might be feeling like this is a tough call. But based on this match, Shazam versus Who's the Boss, just based on the Who's the Boss that we saw, Bogz, do you feel like it makes sense for Dagnino to be taking Who's the Boss as seriously as his pick for the teams tournament as he is? Or do you think that he should just be focusing on the Founding Fathers?
It's hard to say just on this match, but obviously not just on this match, basically. But I'll give my quick take on what I think is going on there, and I'll be as quick as I can. So I believe next year, so obviously he can only keep technically now 3 players. And I believe that he's going to keep Bateman because, it's his boy and he believes that he's the best player. He's going to keep Dan because he's Dan. And I believe he's going to keep the Barbarian or an outside chance Di Malanta. Obviously because he'll always be a top contender in Star Wars. So therefore, I don't think he's going to keep Rocha, who I kind of more thinking that he doesn't want to stay with Finstock anyway, or maybe he might risk going, gamble with another team and be kind of the leader of that team. And I don't think he's going to keep Riley. Okay, so because he's not going to, I believe he's going to disband Who's the Boss and the Founding Fathers. He's going to use, like he was saying in his post-match interview after the Founding Fathers Korruption match, that he wants as much points as possible, and he's probably going to get that based on these matches, obviously, with the Founding Fathers. So I don't believe that he has any affiliation any longer with Who's the Boss. They've already kind of won tournaments. They've already played excellent. They've done all they can. Obviously, he has an outside chance of putting them in the tournament. But for me, I can't really see it. I mean, that's what all it is to me, an outside chance. Like the Founding Fathers, get as much points as you can, because I don't think from next year onwards he doesn't have any affiliation with them teams anymore. So so for me, he doesn't owe Who's the Boss anything moving forward anyway. So that's what I think. So yeah,
I definitely dig the 3 people that you think Finstock is going to keep. I think those are smart picks, and we'll see how it goes. But now let's get into that main event. Let's get into that title match that we have inevitably discussed the results of, just by merit of having the conversation of what Dagnino is going to be up to. But let's not take away from the fact that this was a heck of a good match, gentlemen. I don't know about you guys, but this made the $5 worth it. Obviously, it was nice to see Shazam and Who's the Boss, but that match didn't quite live up to what I was thinking. I have no such qualms with Founding Fathers versus Korruption. Bogz, go ahead, man. What were you looking forward to the most kind of going into this? Was there one player in particular that you were like, oh, this person's gonna be the key staple? Because obviously we're a show that loves Chance Ellison and John Rocha. So is there one player in particular that you were like, it's gonna be this person's game?
Oh, okay. So if I was going to answer, all right, Colin, stop looking at me like that.
We all know.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say, I'll put it this way. I'll say it not different. So I'll come to that later. All right. I'll give you what you want, Colin. Don't worry. I'll come to that.
No,
later.
I'm going to give you what I want.
Well, okay. So first, I'll start off slightly differently. I said it in the live stream, obviously, that we done on YouTube, that I was more interested in Mike. What was he coming to the table? Because we know Rocha and Murrel are 9, 10 out of 10s. So is Chance in, just overall. We know he's actually a singles player, so he's killing it in other divisions, but we know he's a singles player. So what is Mike going to do? We know he's, I would probably class them 3 guys as potentially A-level singles players, and I would class, maybe a bit harsh, but Mike is a B-level singles player. That's kind of, use his tactics and strategy and showmanship to get him to them, kind of to make him an A-level player, if that makes sense. So I was more interested in him. What's he going to do? And I just love the way that he was completely relying on Chance, a bit like Oyama and Lon. Like for me, when they play, it feels like, final example play, it feels like Oyama gives the answer and he just asks Lon, is this right or wrong? Basically,
you concur?
This is it. Yeah, basically, love that. So it seemed like Chance was the leader of the team. And he just kind of asked Mike, do you agree or not? Or, Mike comes up with a suggestion, he kind of just double checks with Chance. Love that. Mike stepped up, but he stepped up in a way where he gave Chance the responsibility. He let his, you'd think, oh, he's got too much ego, kind of, he think he knows what he wants. No, he knows that Chance is the better player, puts him up front, and he's the backup to Chance, which I absolutely loved. So, I noticed kind of that from the start. So, yeah, that was my main kind of thing going in. I wanted to see what Mike was at, but he stepped up big time.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, this might be a little bit bold, but if you didn't believe it at the end of that Inner Geekdom tournament, if you didn't believe it at the end of this title match, I guarantee you that by the end of the singles tournament, everyone is going to be on the same page that Chance Ellison could very well be the player of the year. Easily. Even if he doesn't wind up with all 3 belts, I think player of the year is still easily within his grasp, just looking at the other field of competitors. And I really liked what you were saying, Bogz, about the way that Chance and Mike kind of balanced themselves out, because I really found it interesting how round 1 shook out. Mm-hmm. Both John Rocha and Dan Murrel each only missed 1 of the 8 questions that they got asked, both definitely polished. But then if you look at Korruption on the other side with their concurrences, spelled with a K, of course, Mike missed 2 different questions. So technically they were going to be going out of round 1 with a 2-point deficit. But then Chance, only competitor who got a perfect round 1 and then also hit that bonus question. So we came out of it 13-13. Also interesting to note that this was the second round 1 of the night that was ultimately decided by the youngest member knowing the animated movie, being the only person that knows it, just like with open season, with home, these young bucks, Colin, which is also to say, I guess, us, we're also rather young. I mean, I don't know if you guys knew home and open season. I sure did. But yeah, Colin, what were you thinking about round 1?
That was right.
All right.
No. I'm taking this win. I'm taking this win, and I'm checking it in. I'm checking this cash in right now. I'm checking this. Cashing in this check. That's what I'm doing. It's early. That moment where Chance nails home is one of those. I'm putting it in top 5 most important Schmoedown moments. We're talking when Dan flips the free-for-all table, when it eliminates everybody on the table at the same time. I'm talking it's up there. Chance made his mark that moment. He said, I know this. Y'all don't. This is my time. And now give me my bonus question. Y'all sit down and listen to the new champ. And it was his time. He took the moment, and he didn't let the moment slip. That is a time that any person who's not prepared to be the champ, is not prepared to be the best player, that's when you miss a free throw. He didn't miss the free throw. He made both of them. It was an and one. That was an and one, and he converted the and one, got him up, tied. Man, the fact that he got them tied 13-13 going into round 2, this is huge. It's huge. It could have been a way different game, just in terms of we talk about momentum. But Chance seized the momentum when it was given to him. Primetime players want the ball in primetime moments, and Chance got the ball, shot the shot, and he made it, John. And that round 1, that was probably my favorite thing we've seen all through. And that's exactly what he talks about. He comes in, he says it's an art form. That first round, we talk about it. He loves it. And he came in, and in the moment he needed it most, he didn't vanish like the Avatar. He showed up.
Yeah, he came in and he messed with the Zohan. That's the metaphor I'm going to go with. He was the only one who dared mess with the Zohan. You don't mess with the Zohan.
Oh, you don't mess with
You don't mess with the Zohan.
No, you don't. Who's on first? Zohan? Definitely Chance made a beautiful meal out of round 1. No question about it. But round 2, we did see Founding Fathers coming out with an edge. A 1-point lead after getting 11 points in their Angela Bassett category versus Korruption, who had spun away from Angela Bassett and got the 1980. So it was 24-23 going out of round 2. What were your thoughts on round 2? Do you think that Korruption should have stuck with Angela Bassett? Because on top of already being a national treasure, now it's clear that she is a treasure trove of Schmoedown points.
Yeah, I mean, they, I don't know. So it seemed like the Founding Fathers didn't really struggle with that round. Who's to say, Korruption would have not gone multiple choice. But yeah, I mean, they did go multiple choice a couple of times in the 80s, but overall, they got every question right. And just on the back of that round 1, where obviously Chance has told us personally that's where he does his best work. Because I've seen, a few times in this week where kind of other after shows, other pundits, other players almost say that round 1, especially in title matches, doesn't matter. Really? No. So
yeah, come find me in my mentions. We can have some words on that. Exactly. That is
tell Chance round 1 doesn't matter. Woo. Yeah, he's man. I mean, how he's playing at the minute, like. So, obviously we talked before, but, he's playing against people that are double his age, multi-belted, and he's going perfect. He's killing it. He's carrying the Schmoedown this season. He's absolutely killing it, man. So, yeah, the round 1 absolutely on fire, man. I was so happy for him. Obviously, Rocha and Murrel playing excellent as well. But, yeah, just love the kind of the flow of round 2. Obviously, both teams playing excellent. I actually thought, I was a bit confused why Founding Fathers went first, because we know Chance and Korruption go first always if they can, as he's told us that. So they offered to put them first, which threw me off a little bit.
You said Founding Fathers made them go first.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I was a bit surprised at that because
you thought Founding Fathers were going to go first. Gotcha.
Yeah, because Chance told us that he likes to go first in round 2 and Korruption always go first. So I was like thinking, because that's what, they said after. That's what Shannon said, we always go second, we always go first in round 2. I thought maybe they would have known that. So I would have liked to know the reason why they done that. But it didn't really make much of a difference. Both teams nearly going perfectly in round 2. But yeah, it was just it was just that bonus point. When he got that bonus point in round 2, all I could hear in my head was like, y'all are in trouble. The Founding Fathers, like, you guys are in trouble. He's coming. So watch out. Like that round 2 all equul. But I was surprised. Obviously, Korruption kept pace really well.
It's 24-23. Founding Fathers are up 1. Yeah. But sitting there, I love that I'm sitting there doing the math. Like, so they can only check down once, and they didn't need it. I mean, it was pretty impressive. I mean, watching Founding Fathers just roll through that second round. Honestly, that just starts me just feeling like that this is never gonna end. I felt at that point like, oh no, this is going this way. Now it's going this way. Now it's going this way. Now it's going this way. It was like watching tennis, John.
Absolutely, tennis, a game I understand even less than soccer. So thanks for that, Colin, you jerk.
Man.
But no, certainly at the end of round 2, Founding Fathers up 1 point. Then we get to round 3. And first of all, Colin and Bogz, I want to make sure I see your hands on screen at all times. Okay, I need to make sure nobody thinks that we're cheating about our commentary, because as several players pointed out in the live stream, there was some hoopla going on about who can see whose hands, but cannot sock is right. If their hands weren't visible at all times, we'd have the fans coming in and making an even larger hoopla about it. And I think that's part of why we've seen so many challenges and such long, laborious conversations on ruling sometimes, because I think as tough as it is as heavy as the head is that wears the crown when it comes to these decisions, there's also a whole lot of just question of they have to make these decisions as long as possible. They have to put as much possible thought in, because fans are going to be there are going to be some fans that talk smack no matter what. And so it's always just about, let's make this as clear cut as it can be from our end, so that way we give the folks at home as little to moan about as possible. So I don't know if you think that that's necessarily fair, Colin, but at least round 3 is the one I had written down where it's like there was definitely some of the most nonsense about seeing those hands on screen.
There's no rules. We got to talk about the rules. There's no, it's not on the card. It's not on the card at the beginning of round 1. Christian didn't say it at the beginning of the game. Look, hands up the whole time, or explain when the hands need to be up. Specifically say when questions are being asked and questions are being answered, please have your hands up. You can put them down once you've answered a question, but please, when you are in the act of answering a question, please have your hands visible on the screen. Understand that it is difficult to do that for how long were they on camera? That's a pretty long time to just keep them up the entire time. Especially some people are just like Chance. He's sitting up against the wall, it looks like. John is sitting in one of these chairs with arms. It's different for everyone. Anyone on the internet who thinks any of these players in a championship match is cheating or Googling, that's not how these folks work. That's not how this game works. That's not what this game is. This isn't Jeopardy, and you're not pausing it like some of my family members to try to remember what the answer is. That's not the point of this. That's not what these guys get a high off of when they play this game. So check that attitude at the door, and please leave it out of the comments, because we do not have room for that kind of energy here in the Schmoedown. These guys are here competing, and to even accuse any player of even thinking that they would possibly take the time to Google an answer, you are out of your mind. You need to check, just check yourself, because you're about to wreck yourself, and the Schmoedown community will swarm you. Like we have proven, we will weed out the bad apples. And anyone who thinks like, come on, y'all. Then, in my opinion, you don't respect these players as much as you should, because they have more respect for this game than to stoop to that kind of level. And that's not how any of these guys want to win.
Amen to that, buddy. Yeah, I mean, and certainly, I don't think any actual cheating happened. No. Certainly, some shenanigans happened as far as just the exact precise nature of who gets to bet what and when. There was some technical difficulties, Bogz. Obviously, coming out of that, both teams, got the question correct. Betting different values of silver and gold, like that song from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Christmas special. What did you think of this round 3 of the coordination that had to go on to get people's point totals and what have you? What did you think of that round?
Yeah, obviously all a little bit awkward, clunky, bit of a weird thing to see it all unfold, but. You know, it is a little bit like car crash television where you kind of cringing when you're watching it, but it just adds so much extra to the drama of it all, where people are getting dropped in and out, people are arguing against Christian stumbling over his words. It's just, you know, I do like the fun of it. So just on the back of what you're saying, Colin, where people are accusing players well, obviously you got the hands and they've told people as well, look at the camera. People looking off screen, they're wondering, you know, it's all kinds of.
Rocha's first question. Rocha literally tips his head down, and you can't see his eyes underneath the hat. As soon as Christian says, "Look at the camera," I'm just like, "What are we like? Then why are we wasting time on this?" Like,
exactly.
If Shannon wanted to say something, she should have said it then, because then Dan closed his eyes immediately too and looked down on the first question. It's just, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's trolling for people. The fans I'm on about complaining something. So if you think someone can cheat within 2 seconds of their hands being down, if you're going to put that energy out there that they're cheating because of that, whilst you know an answer's going on, it's trolling. Like, come on, like just enjoy.
I've been testing it with Siri.
Like,
it's hard.
I'm not giving it any credence. You know, like this. You know, the hand stuff, the looking down stuff. We're talking about a few seconds. Like you could see that they haven't got any device in the like. It's just not. It's not worth it. I'm not worth my time spending on that. Yeah, I'm just enjoying the match. Let people troll. Yeah, and that's up to them. You know, if they want to do that, that's fine. If you have fun doing that, you know, all respect to you. But I'm not spending any time doing that, to be honest. But yeah, I was just glad that both got them right, and there wasn't kind of a massive, because I wanted the scores to be close going into the kind of last round. So. Yeah, I was just glad they both got it right. Loving the code words and all that. And yeah, just throughout the match, obviously, again, another question, Korruption getting right, keeping pace. For some reason, I just thought like Founding Fathers would have a bigger lead, and it didn't. I just love Korruption keeping the pace the whole time. Obviously, Rocha seemed to be kind of on fire as well in this match. But yeah, just overall, I'm just glad they got the points right. And then we can obviously go on to a more smoother round in round 4.
Absolutely. And again, kind of talking about definitely Rocha was on fire. Dan was having a solid match as well. I think this was a situation as well where, like we were talking about with Finstock kind of being the stepfather of the Founding Fathers versus the real father of who's the boss, there was that element of it did make sense for him to be a little bit, you know, leaned back, looking like a couch from Twin Peaks.
No,
like
Naidine nailed it. She calls it from the couch. She goes, he looks like the king from Robin Hood, the animated one. The lion. All he was missing was a big old, you know, fur collar coming up the side, but he had the jewels and everything. I was digging the vibe. I don't know why.
I loved it. I
don't know why Mark
man,
wouldn't say
time.
King Gucci the first. I mean, that's pretty. I don't know what.
The king and the queen.
He looked like he belonged as the villain of like the Elektra movie. You know what I mean?
Oh,
decked out in that much red pleather. But what wound up happening was, as good as Founding Fathers were looking, as much as they were able to get that momentum, get that lead, we have the round that decided the match, round 4, the new speed round format. And we saw a little bit of a shift. We saw just a teensy-tiny bit of a shift where instead of Founding Fathers up by 2, Korruption were up by 3. See, I got there, gentlemen. Colin, talk about round 4.
Yeah, I saw one of the like clutchest performances from just any competitors. I can't believe, if you want, like, let's go back to the beginning of this conversation. You asked Bogz a question. You said, Bogz, who were you looking forward to going into this match? Who needs to shine in the moment? And we said it on the pregame show as well. Same thoughts. Mike Kallinoski is the X factor in this match. Mike said it. Mike looked Dan square in the camera, looked Rocha square in the camera. He said, I know who the fourth best player in this game was tonight. I know that for a fact. But Mike in that speed round played like a champion. And champions play. And man, that was an all-time comeback performance in terms of what he needed to bring, in terms for what needed to go right. Mike played that perfectly. And I didn't know some of them off the top of my head. So when there's different answers given by Founding Fathers on some of them, I'm like, now I know it's up in the air, right? So if you don't get it exactly right, that adds to that juice. It adds to that drama. And now Christian backing himself and Mark, or just himself out of the call, adds to that drama. And I think we might even need like a halftime show for some of these, like if these like go like into like if we get back to like championship matches with like, these guys need a break. Like some of this is like, oof, this feels like it was a lot.
Yeah, I can't condone the matches going that much longer, but I mean, if we need a little bit of a break, then sure, just give Video Drew a camcorder and let her go off for a half hour.
Or we let Lon show up.
But yeah, certainly. And again, I think we see a lot more of how much Dan and Rocha are in sync with each other, because once again, they had identical performances in round 4, where both of them got 3 of their questions. There was one that they had to pass on that they just couldn't pull, and then they each got 1 question wrong.
So that results in 2 points for both of them, so a total of 4, right?
That's right.
Okay, as opposed to...
No, because they each got 3 right. Oh, yeah, it does total up to 4.
But then you lose a point, so it's not 4 total. Right.
Yeah. Whereas, with Mike and Chance did have to ultimately pass on 1, so it was not as perfect as, say, his round 1, but they got 9 points.
From Mike, the killer, Kallinoski, coming out and making the new speed round, the new Family Feud round, the killer's den. I mean, this is now Mike feels comfy. I mean, I'm pretty sure he only passed once in his he didn't have a speed round actually. But any other time in the speed rounds before, Mike in a championship round, he's also felt extremely comfortable. Mike has never been one to shy away from the buzzer. I know there are some players where the buzzer round was not everyone performs as well as Ben Bateman does, but Mike was in that upper echelon of people who I didn't really worry about when it came to the speed round. But his mind works like that. You can tell that it's that this round plays in his wheelhouse. And boy, did you mentioned, John, that momentum. Woo-wee. Boy, did that swing.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I don't think it's any surprise that Ben Bateman and Mike Kallinoski are at the best at pushing buttons. Am I right? Am I right, gentlemen? Oh, wordplay. I'm trying to be a writer. It's not going great. Round 5, then. I mean, obviously, Bogz, I'm excited to hear what you've got to say about round 4 as well, but I also want to give you the opportunity to segue into round 5, because certainly this match, even though there was that pretty big momentum shift, it still came down to the wire.
Yeah. Just final comments on round 4 is just pretty much repeating what Colin was saying, that because they give so many different answers, I didn't have a clue who was where or what the score was. So it was just the longer Christian was taking, I was just kind of going more and more on the edge of my seat, thinking what is going off here. And to hear that swing, I could not believe it. I thought they're so far back, because they were all like, wow, like were not expecting that, especially from Founding Fathers missing two between them and passing on 2, like such a big swing. Mike can prove himself, to be, he called it himself. Is he the best speed round player of all time? Fantastic for Korruption. I mean, to go in ahead, I couldn't believe it. So I just thought overall, when Chance does his stance, you're in trouble.
The chant stance.
He's relaxing. You know, everyone's talking, relaxing. Yeah, you're doing great, buddy. Yeah, very good. And then when it comes to this, like, you just feel like he ain't missing. He ain't missing no matter what it is. If it's 80s, if it's comedies, if it's horrors, he ain't missing. If you're like, what is he not good at? Like, he's that on point. So, yeah, it's just super exciting round 4. Leading into that round 5, I couldn't believe it. So yeah, have you got the questions for round 5?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not necessarily going to go
over
them just because, yeah, we only got so much time left here. But I did want to point out that, you know, the Founding Fathers definitely stuck with it, managed to pull after hours with that time, just taking it easy for a second, making sure that they really had that answer ironed out. But then I also want to make sure we talk about the final 5-pointer for Korruption. Because I know some people, when talking about who's the boss, they were like, oh, is Ben going to be able to pull his mind games? He might not be able to do mind games digitally. Chance could do mind games, y'all. Chance had the answer in the back of his head the whole dang time, and even was playing around with Mike a little bit to make sure that we got ourselves a
I had enough time to Google it. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to know whether he was right. So I literally Googled the dude's name that he said, and then all the movies popped up.
Oh, and I should have waited, man.
I couldn't wait, dude. I literally couldn't wait. I was so anxious. I was so anxious. And I looked right at the same time, and Christian goes,
that's what.
Like,
that's why. That's when people talk about, yeah, this ain't a, you know, we're trying to make this a sport, right? Like, that's what I've you know, obviously live in the UK, boxing fights, big events, you know, they do come on 5-6 o'clock in the morning, and you're waiting there, your eyes half closed, edge of your seat, and you hear, and your winner, and the new. It's like, what? It was, oh man, super happy for that guy, and the celebrations afterwards, obviously, kind of stringing out the 5-point, putting it, you know, using the repeats. I didn't know if he got it right. I didn't know who directed that, but I trusted Chance. I just knew Chance had it. Like, he just the way he's played. Look, he's not got a question wrong in a title match against the Founding Fathers, the 2 best players of all time, and he's just 22 years old. 22 years old. So not only is like this, you need to give this guy Player of the Year. For me personally, he has he's legitimate kind of consideration for all-time player now.
Welcome to the 2-time
champion.
Welcome to the 5-timer club.
2-time champion. He's got another title shot lined up. He's got a singles tournament lined up here. Like, this guy, man, and he's a fan of our show. So I just want to put that out there. He's a fan of our show. So yeah, no, a massive respect for the Founding Fathers as well. They played brilliant. You know, Rocha obviously pulling that excellent 5-pointer himself as well. So shout out for that. But yeah, I was just so happy for Chance, man. I mean, it was an exhausting match, you know, just as a fan. So yeah, it was a brilliant drama. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Absolutely. And we certainly know that it's not going to stop anytime soon as well. Obviously, Dan cutting himself a little bit of a promo as well, talking about they're going to see Korruption again, no matter what it takes. Again, that question of lighting the fire. And we even heard Mike talk about it after the match, where he was like, I knew what was going to happen if I really talked too much trash and lit a fire under John. But yeah, we've also seen what happens when someone lights a fire under Dan. And I want to bounce it over to Colin first. Colin, do you think that we're going to see Founding Fathers and Korruption again by the end of the year? Do you think it's going to take a little longer than that? Do you think Founding Fathers are going to be in that team's tournament and just run through it? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking I'm kind of on the same page with Bogz in terms of picks. If I was Mark Riley, I would be making phone calls to maybe the usual suspects.
Maybe Broker to Korruption. Hey, how about that?
That was hot as well. But maybe a pairing with Ethan Irwin, possibly in the future for Mark Riley. I think that's a dangerous team. That's a truly dangerous team, because I think there's a lot of geeky stuff that Mark knows, you know. But side note, leading into that question, that I think Founding Fathers are going to be in the tournament. I think the Founding Fathers, I don't see a team currently put together. So that's kind of where my mind goes to Mark Riley and Ethan Irwin as a possible contender to possibly beat that team. Even if there was a hope for a team to beat, I don't see a team beating them in the tournament. I just don't see, with what we watched last night, with the way Dan performed. I've never seen Dan perform like that twice in a row. That just doesn't happen. And I don't think it's going to happen for Ben Bateman either. So that's why, I mean, not to give my picks for next week, but I see a very different Ben Bateman coming into a match against Andrew Guy, much like I see a much different Founding Fathers team. Kind of, Rocha took the step this week to be a much better digital player than he was in his match. And I think Dan took a step back in order to take a step forward. Dan needed to have more things to learn from than he did in his match, and maybe felt a little too safe because Ethan didn't maybe propose the same challenge that Korruption was going to propose this week. So in order to take that loss this week, Dan now has a place to go. Dan has that fire to go rekindle, because right now it's diminished, but it needs to be sparked back up, and it will in this team's tournament. But I'm looking right now on my screen, y'all, at Shannon coming in, kissing Mike on the cheek. Her screen is empty on the thing, and Chance, and they zoom over to Chance, and you can even tell through the glasses how much this means to these guys. And the fact that the Founding Fathers had to sit there and watch it for 4 minutes before they came on, that's fire. And that is just more and more and more throwing into this rivalry, that this ends at spectacular.
Fair enough, yeah. And certainly I would agree that Founding Fathers is the right choice for the team's tournament. I'm sure Korruption is probably going to go with Adam Collins and Marisol McKee, a.k.a. Coyote Justice, for their team. But then, Bogz, we got like a minute left. So I just want to hear real quick, buddy, Korruption versus Shazam. Who you got?
Before I do that, I just want to give a shout to the mind games that they played Korruption, because I agree with Colin there that, you know, the Murrel's kind of whole match, you know, I spoke about it all week, that, you know, just the calmness of that kind of Murrel and Irwin match. Obviously from there, going into this match, Korruption kind of rode the back of that, and all were also calm. Didn't rattle these guys, didn't wind them up, you know, didn't kind of go after them. Were very nice and complimentary of everybody, and it worked out in their favor, because obviously, you know, Rocha, I thought was overall the better player. I think Dan maybe was a little bit too relaxed in this match, and I think that kind of that the mind games worked for Korruption. I wondered why they were doing it, but obviously this is the reason why. You know, that they confirmed it afterwards. Absolutely fantastic mind games. And yeah, so Shazam of Korruption, I mean, God knows, I mean, great match.
Could you imagine Chance versus Brendan in the Final Four?
Yeah, exactly. And I saw, obviously, Chance went running off there, camera for a bit, and I thought, you know, he's probably called his mom and dad, you know, because he told us obviously they're big into the Schmoedown as well. So I hope hope you give him a good phone call there. But yeah, it's Shazam and Korruption. I mean, if I'm just gonna pick now at the blue, I mean, I'm gonna say Korruption, but yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, after the singles tournament, I like to give a more kind of accurate breakdown and see where we're at then.
Yeah, absolutely, because we are crunched for time, my dear friends and viewers. I'm certainly not going to go ahead and make a call right now, because if I've learned anything, it's that my calls are often wrong. So I'm really going to take my time with this one. Colin, I'll give you final word on this real nice and quick. Shazam versus Korruption. Are you leaning one way right now, or are you also waiting?
You already know. The best player in the game right now. His name's Chance, the Cobra Ellison. But in my opinion, top 5 player playing right now might be the kid. I think the kid's versatile, and I think he brings an energy with him and Bibbs that's kind of hard. So, I mean, I think that poses it's a harder matchup for Korruption than the Founding Fathers, because I think it's much harder to work Shazam like they mentally worked the Founding Fathers last night. So that's where I'm going to go. I'll leave it at that. And over to you, Chief.
Well, with you leaving it on that, I'm going to leave it on that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Colin and Bogz, thank you so much for talking about the Schmoedown with me. It's a delight every time. This game is fun. We like talking about it and also being respectful as we do so. It shouldn't be hard, but sometimes it is for folks. But at the end of the day, this is a game that we all love, and that's why we're all talking about it, because it's fun, doggone it. And I had fun today. I hope you all watching at home had fun watching us or listening to us if you're listening to this as a podcast, which you can do. Check us out on anchor.fm/TUSSpod, YouTube, The Ultimate Schmoedown Show, Twitter, @TUSSpod. You can email us questions at TUSSpod@gmail.com. there's the Twitter handle even right there. How about that? It's nice and easy for you. I'm John Barr. This has been the Ultimate Schmoedown Show. We'll see you next time.